Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. Every week, we bring you the stories of people who are working to make the lives of others better somewhere, locally, globally, digitally. And we are doing this as part of Rotary International, 1.4 million Rotarians and Rotaractors around the world in 36,000 plus clubs. And our particular club, which you can find, by the way, at rotary.cool, no, really, try it, is one where what we do is we connect with people all over the planet who have these interesting stories to tell. We record them, and those recordings become programs for our weekly meetings. So we have quite the archive that you might take an interest in as well. Today, as you may have read in the bio coming into this section, either because you are on our Rotary page and read it on as you were scrolling down to where the program is, or because you're on your YouTube page and you checked out the comments before pressing play, you will learn plenty about our speaker, Shannon Rizzo. And Shannon has quite a path, and she is one of those people just dedicated to seeing something really good happen, and became very interested in the plight of children in specific places in the world. And she is going to tell us about today as a part of Boundless Foundation, okay, the Empowering Children initiative that she runs. Shannon, it is a pleasure to have you, and I hand the mic over to you.
Thank you, Rushton. Thank you, everyone who is present and all those who will be watching after. I am Shannon Rizzo, and I'm the founder of Boundless Foundation. And I started this foundation just 2 short years ago when my heart was captured from the children in Honduras. I've been doing work all over the world in developing countries for about 6 years. And I found myself in the poorest of the poorest places when I traveled. And along my journeys, I found that there were so many women that were struggling economically and had just no opportunity to raise their children in an environment that was safe and really didn't have an opportunity for education. And being a child of poverty myself, I actually at one time was homeless with my mother after she was divorced from my father when I was only 4 years old. And it wasn't until recently that I had the memories return from that trauma when I was a child. And so now I know the path that I'm on is so solid, and it's from experience that these travels became a mission. And it became a mission to find the help and the resources, because I knew I could not do it alone, for these women and for the children that needed opportunities to bring themselves from poverty. As a child who broke the cycle of poverty in my family, being the first to be educated in college and the first to graduate on my dad's side in high school, I've made it quite well for myself. And that was only because of the help that I had when I was in school. And so one thing that my mother did as she was struggling to make it and to make a home for us and to provide a safe environment was she kept me in school constantly. And every time we moved, she moved into a better neighborhood with better opportunities for education. And I found myself on the other side of that, being loved and adored by the teachers that were there, in the help and the hand up that they gave me. Later on, that came into being provided scholarships to be able to go back to school and to earn a degree. And so I have the biggest heart and have found those dreamers and the people who have big hearts as well to be able to help us to build schools. And so that is what the Boundless Foundation is all about, is that we build schools in developing countries in the most remote areas where there is no opportunity currently for education. What we found is that in these areas, there is hope and there is belief that there is a way to make this happen. And so I will tell you a little bit more about what we do. We are building a better future with the Boundless Foundation and all of our strategic partners, as well as our donors that we call impact investors. These little girls that you're seeing here are a part of the children that go to the Our Boundless Academy in Samarguela, Honduras. This was a village of 100 families that had never had a school before. But what happened was there was an elder that was in the community, and he said that they could borrow his living room, which was a one-room home, to educate the children that wanted to learn. And in the beginning, there were 3 children that came to learn in this house, and 1 teacher that was able to teach them. This is the room that they were learning in, and this is part of our vetting process. We make sure that in every community that we go in, that there is a community member that is able to teach and has been a teacher before, whether they're come from another community or they're from the community that they're in now and have a prior education for that. We make sure that there is a system that is set up already in place to make sure that when we leave, after we build the school, that there is a foundational system in place for this to happen. The reason that we chose Honduras is 17.6% of children are out of school. 80% of those who do not attend school do not meet the basic literacy standards. And 60% of rural dwellers live under the poverty line. This is extreme poverty. This is the kind of poverty where there's no safe water. The children are sometimes only eating a meal every other day, and there is no running water or sanitation. Education is therefore considered a luxury. 10% of those children have no access to education, even if they were to travel 3 to 4 miles to the local school, because they cannot afford a uniform. And it requires a uniform in Honduras to be able to attend school to get an education. Many of the children who have access need to walk so many miles to get there that it's not safe for so many reasons. There's gang violence, there's human trafficking, there are wild animals. Imagine this. Imagine that you have a 5-year-old child that is required to walk 4 miles to the closest school to then learn for 3 to 4 hours and then return home. It's unimaginable to us that that could ever happen. And so that is why we've picked these areas that we have dedicated to our service and being able to raise funds to build a school that's safe for them. The Boundless Foundation believes education is a fundamental right. Our mission is to build schools and provide access to education for all children. We do this by partnering with organizations inside the countries that we're working. Currently, we are working in Honduras, Guatemala, and in the future, this year, Kenya. When we've partnered, we've picked NGOs that have had a sustainable record of already building schools and vetting communities that are in the most need. We also want to make sure that the education can continue for many, many years and many generations to come. One of those possibilities, one of those requirements is that the school must be able to be sustained after we leave, because we do not cover the funds for the teacher nor the maintenance of the school. And so we have contracts with the community members and the elders that they will take on that responsibility, as well as the municipality that is in each one of the villages that we're in. And so it's a group effort. We also have impact investors that donate funds. We make sure that our partners in those countries have allocated the funds properly. We have a system set up to where we are sent photos, and we actually do site visits as well to make sure that everything that we're doing is coming through in succession in the quickest way possible. And because there are so many other organizations that are starting this same trajectory and building schools in developing countries, the one thing that we have done is partnered with those organizations instead of competing with them. We believe that every child deserves an education and that there are so many organizations that can partner together for greater resources. This is our strategic avenue on how we've been so successful in just 2 years. We've built 10 schools. Our mission and values is that we build schools and we serve children and the children's future and the future children. We give a voice to those who do not have one, and we inspire action for impact. One of the other things that sets us apart is that we have immediate impact with our donor dollars. Our schools are built within 6 to 12 weeks of when we receive a full funding for the school. Most of the time, it takes us about 6 to 8 weeks to raise the funds for a school. And so we're looking at a 12 to 18-week process. A beautiful thing that we do as well is that we invite our donors to visit the schools that they have helped to raise the funds for. This not only empowers our donors, but also empowers the students that are there. One of the greatest stories that I will remember and treasure for a lifetime is when we took our travel agent with the donors that we brought to Sin Marguela, our very first school, and the children that were there The travel agent, Shayla, she's bilingual and she spoke Spanish, and she asked the little girls what they wanted to be when they grew up. One of the little girls replied that she wanted to be a farmer just like her dad. And Shayla said, well, let me tell you what I do. And she said, I'm a travel agent and I travel all over the world and I get to visit children just like you. Later on, when we visited that same community about 6 months later, the two little girls that she spoke with were giving a bilingual presentation, and they were only in the second grade. And the little girls both said they wanted to be travel agents. This is the kind of impact that we're talking about, because this village was off the map. There was no school at hand. There was no way for them to learn, and certainly not to be inspired to dream about a career that they might not have ever even seen had we not been in this small village and called to San Marguela. We evolve gracefully and expand our impact with love, and we collaborate with aligned partners to maximize our impact. It is so important to us that our impact investors are really trying to enrich their own culture, their own community, and to make sure that there is a bond between the community that they're raising funds for and the community that they have at home. And so we are creating a ripple effect in the world for a force for good. Some of our success stories, we have so many things that are going on at each one of our schools, and we have beautiful, beautiful stories about the children and how they're growing and how they have, and some of our schools have perfect attendance. This lets us know that they've just needed the opportunity to succeed, and that's what we're delivering. We have so far built 9 schools, and we are on our 10th one this year. We did have one of our schools not be able to be completed, and that was a wonderful learning lesson for us on how the vetting process could leave out a small detail and to throw a complete project off track. So we have actually incorporated so many more details into our vetting process, which I'll talk about a little bit later, or we can answer in the Q&A. This year, we also have in our plan to be helping in Peru along the Amazon River. The transformation has been incredible that we have seen, the response to the children, but also the teachers. The teachers were not inspired because they were basically having to provide shelter in the middle of the day, whether from the extreme weather, the heat. Some of the children did not even have shelter. So this is you'll see it's a dirt ground, and there's not even a roof or a tent over the children. They're now spread 6 feet apart because of the COVID virus being spread so rapidly. And so what we have been able to do is we've been able to come in this particular community, we have built a 3-room classroom that holds over 90 children, with bathrooms for both the boys and the girls separately, along with hand sanitizing and water stations. They also received safe water to drink during the day, and they received 1 warm meal along with their education that day. The teachers were having a very hard time being able to teach because there were so many children and not enough teachers. This particular school has actually received funding from the local government since we built the school for an additional teacher, and a 5th one may even be on the way. San Marguela was our very first school, as I told you a little bit about earlier. And when we've revisited, we always ask the inspiration for the children and what they're coming up with and what are their dreams, because we believe that learning to dream is the absolute self-expressive way that you are no longer in the basic needs category and that you have survival met. And the next step up from that is to be able to learn to create. And so we came back to visit San Marguela and noticed they they've all painted on the side of the school, "Welcome to our school." And there was a doctor, a nurse, a politician, and also a teacher painted on the side of the building. And that to us let us know that not only were these children dreaming, but they were also inspiring the next generation to dream by putting something permanent on the school that they picked. The colors were green and yellow, which was inspired by the children. And there were also local dancers that were brought in to celebrate this inauguration, and then also the 1- and 2-year anniversary of the students. The students in this school actually graduated with perfect attendance, with the exception of one young lady who actually did drop out of school because her parents moved too far into the mountains. We also had an incredible program that started here where 18 of the adults in the community are now learning at night inside the school. And so there is no childcare, of course. This is still a very small community, but this second program graduated 18 parents from it within 1 year. And now they have learned to read and write basic skills. They are now aspiring to go out and to look for jobs in the closest city and are no longer just looking to be farmers. This particular school was just finished in May 2023, and the students were able to have this school because the property was donated by the local government, and they gave up their soccer field, which was a really big deal. And so it was so beautiful. At the very end, our contractors were able to make a small soccer field for them still to play in afterwards. This particular school has 95 children and 3 teachers in it, and the children are actually there learning as we speak. La Granja is actually just finished as well, and this one has 106 children across 9 grades that are learning. A 3rd teacher has been hired and a 4th one is on the way. And the students are able to attend 5 days a week. They no longer have to cross a dangerous river to be able to get there, and they no longer have to depend on what the weather is to be able to get an education. We also expect that there are 20 more students that are coming now that it is safe for them to be able to learn in this environment. Each of them will have their own desk. And so a little bit about our administrative costs that we have. To build a school runs around $37,500 in Honduras. And it actually has a little bit of a higher cost. And we have a match donor that our top cost, is $53,000 and some odd dollars, but our match donor covers $25,000 of that. Most of this cost and expense goes to getting the equipment to these very remote places. There is a lot of heavy construction equipment that is needed and a lot of teams, and they have to stay there for the duration of the build, about 6 weeks with the locals, to be able to complete the project on time. If they were to travel back and forth, they would not be able to complete it in such a short period of time, and the cost would go up even from there. We are donating about 81 cents to every dollar that goes directly to the schools. The rest of the expenses are in our administrative cost, where we have videography, we have fundraisers, and we have consultants and a staff member that we are paying for. We also do incorporate some of those liaison costs for the travel expenses when we are taking our donors, our impact investors on the trips. So the total cost is about $823 per student to build a school. And that's for the first generation, because generations to come, it will be $0. The school will already be intact, and the municipality covers the expenses from there on out for the teachers and the maintenance of the buildings. And so anyone who is watching, if you would love to learn more, I'm happy to answer questions, and I'll leave my contact information with Rushton. I wanted to let you know that your presence can change the future of these children. Just in the story that I told you about the travel agent that came with us, you can make a difference in dollars, or you can make a difference in presence. And we also are looking for volunteer members as well as board members as we increase in our scale this year. And last but not least, there is a current opportunity for those of you who would like to get involved. We have Felipe Neri Hernandez School that is 117 students, and it's grades K through 6, and it serves 4 communities. This school will be built because it is extreme heat with overcrowding, and many classes are going on simultaneously, what makes it almost impossible for the children to learn in this environment. There is also unsanitary conditions which are causing stomach viruses because of the water. And this school's particular value for build is $64,849. We have a match donor for $25,000, and we've also raised an additional $27,049 with only $12,800 left to complete this school. In the pictures, you'll be able to see the desk that they're learning on. You'll see the children that are there in the classroom environment, and you'll also see them standing out in front of a mural that is painted on the side of the wall there. That's all I have for today. I would love to answer any questions if there are any. I appreciate so much being able to be here and present to you today, and just so grateful and thankful for the experience.
Wonderful, Shannon. Thank you so much. All right, well, let's shift. Let's start with the stop sharing there, and we'll introduce the
Sure.
people that we've got in the group. So today, in addition to Shannon, we have from our club the Paella Master, Shag Shagrin, and we also have from the District 7040 Rotary Passport Club in Canada, but who is not in Canada, that would be Chris Cochran, currently in Tokyo. So wonderful to hear the story. I'm excited for us to get into the Q&A. One of the questions that I'd like to hear a little bit more about is you talk about the partnerships that are so important for making sure that you meet all of the many different needs that are there for schools. What would you say are like the two or three biggest strengths of what Boundless brings to it? Is it the identification of the community? Is it the funding of the build? What is it specifically that is Boundless's strengths for this multi organizational effort?
Beautiful, Rushton. Thank you for that question. Our biggest strength is bringing in the investors and also our relationship building. One of the most beautiful things that we offer is that we create an experience for our investors, and we're really wanting to fulfill the heart. We call it the epic exchange. And it is not only that they are giving their time and their treasure and their talent to these to the organization that's in country and the children that are there, but also that we're building this relationship between everyone so we become a greater impact for all. And so we're making sure that our communication and our experiential celebrations, everything is the donors a part of that.
Good deal. And through the chat came a question about how you get these students to dream, right? So you're identifying a community, you're in this space, they're facing all kinds of challenges,
Mm-hmm.
but you create a school.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, there is this need to help students begin to see new possibilities for themselves going forward. Do you play a role in that? Is that something that is more in the realm of your partners? How does that work?
It's beautiful. Thank you so much. Yes, dreaming big is absolutely my favorite topic in the whole entire world. And one thing that we do is when we do visit them, we bring them books, and they are bilingual. If they're not, we have them translated and we read to the children. We also tell them stories, and we have locals that are there as well that we call ambassadors that come to visit the school on our behalf and that make sure the children are playing and that they're being creative and they're having fun. This is something that we hope to scale and implement into all of the different schools as we grow. Right now, it's only in 3, and that we're hoping to receive funding to be able to do that. And the second part is that when I go to the inaugurations, I actually do give a speech to them, and I engage with them and interact with them on a level that is bringing them to the height of where we are. And so it is that they are our peers and that they are chosen. We found them. I mean, I cannot believe, that there is a better example of dreaming than how in the world do we locate them? And so I tell the story that you must be chosen and must be special because we heard you and we felt your dreams all the way across the world. And here we are standing with you right now. Who would have ever thought that could happen? And so that opens up their minds of like, you're right, like how in the world? And so just creating these stories and sharing with them my personal story that I used to live in a car. I didn't even have a house, and some of them have homes. And so they're thinking, wow, you came from that and here you are in our country. And so it's just all of these beautiful, heartfelt moments that are personal. And so we're really just bonding with the children.
Fantastic. Zeroing in on one thing you said, you talk about having locals, in-country supporters, right? So how do you connect with them? How did they become a part of the effort to support the school?
So I have been a volunteer on several occasions with a recovery group during the hurricanes. Back it's 2 years it's been, and I met so many of the locals in so many different areas. And again, I'm a relationship builder, so I was speaking with everyone, anybody that I could possibly talk to. I was reaching out to them, and I just created a relationship. And so later we came to build schools. We had all of these beautiful connections and people who wanted to help their own country. They wanted to help their own students, their own communities. And so they were just, busting at the seams, waiting to have the opportunity of what do you need from me? So we're constantly getting questions from them as we are impact investors. How can we help? And so we always have this, well, how do you have a vehicle? Can you get to this location? How often can you go? And to answer how we communicate with them, WhatsApp has been an incredible app for us, and it's free. And so we communicate through WhatsApp mostly. And then we have Google Forms that some of them will complete and send over to us and report back case studies or stories about the children's success or needs that the school may have that the government hasn't been able to hear yet.
Fantastic. So lots of compliments on the effort in the chat. So you're obviously, your story is powerful in so many ways. And you talk about this element of your own background, having struggled yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Where along the way did you go from being someone who struggled to someone who could see that you could help others?
Wow. Great question. Thank you. I've always helped others. And so it wasn't even in the struggle, I was still serving. I was always called to serve. And I could tell you a story really quickly, 60 seconds. When I was 5 years old, my mother was on the way to New York, which is where I was born. So she was driving from Nashville, Tennessee to New York, and it was in a blizzard, and it was during the holiday. And we were very, very poor still. We did have a home at the time, no furniture, but we did have a home. And we were going back to visit her family, our family. And during this time, this is when Red Cross used to put trailers on the side of the interstate for weary travelers. And so we actually stopped at one of the trailers and to get warm and to get some hot chocolate or coffee my mom might have been drinking. And in this particular scenario, we walk in and just two people in there. No one wanted to come out, I guess, and they weren't traveling as we were. But we sat down, and I got a little cup of cocoa. And my mom was talking to the gentleman that was over on the other side. And she noticed that I was having a full engaged conversation at 5 years old with the other man that was, in the other side of the trailer. And she came over, she saw me getting out my change purse, and I was taking out the coins that were inside of it and handing them to the gentleman. And she asked me what I was doing for many reasons. One, because we didn't have that much money. She's like, why are you giving away your only money? And she said, what are you doing? And I said, well, this man said that the way that they're able to help people is because people like us can donate money, and they can give hot chocolate to the next person that comes. And so they work off of people giving them money. And so I would like to give him all my money because I want everyone to have hot chocolate and have a friend when they're cold and they're driving down the interstate. And so my mother said at that point, she made a little acknowledgement that she knew I would work for the Red Cross one day. And so I did. Actually, I ended up working for the Red Cross. I was on the board, and that was several years ago. And so it just was like a full circle come to fruition. So the answer to it is I've always been a giver. It's always been in my heart. I've always given, even if I didn't have anything to give. I found a way to help someone because I always felt like I had a lot. And the second part of it is the practical, which is about 10 years ago, I was an entrepreneur, and I actually had made it, and I made an income that was more than survival. And that made me even more of a giver. And so I found not only ways to give money, but I found that I could serve and give my time and volunteer. And so when I began to travel, that's really when I realized that my dollar could actually go 50 times further in another country than it could here in the States. I could never build a school in the States. So I think we'll see. But that's kind of what my mindset was, is that, maybe I could just start small and get uniforms for the children. And during COVID, when all the schools shut down, I thought, well, there's no school, so I must build schools. Like the private schools could still open. And so that's where our first school was done, is right after COVID. The schools were shut down, uniforms didn't matter. And so we built our first private school so the children could go to school.
Nice. Now, when you think about the dollar going farther, I mean, like in a sense, it's a very entrepreneurial mindset, right? Hey, I can make more happen in this other setting. But what is it that connected you specifically to Honduras?
Wow, that one has been Honduras has been put back with me over and over and over again. So I was at the time I was traveling, and this was 6 years ago. I was helping artisans in developing countries by buying their wares and then coming back and then selling them in the United States. And I would buy them full out so they would have the money that day, and then I would come back and put them online and market them. It was called Global Girl Life Foundation at the time. And so I helped the moms to be able to support their own children, and purchase their own uniforms and empower them to feel that feeling and pride of being able to take care of their own children. And so I started doing that in Honduras, because a woman who was going to Honduras, I was in a Panera and she heard me talking, and she said, I think I have to invite you with me. And I said, for what? And she said, I'm going to Honduras and I would like you to come, and it's next week. And I just said yes. And that woman introduced me to so many new ideas of how to help without pushing our ideas onto the communities, but to be able to listen to the communities and see what the actual needs were. And so that became a part of my heart, just to be able to listen and really intently say, what resources do we have we could pull together? And then what are they asking to be taught? Is there anything? And a lot of it was just friendship and companionship and peer sharing. And so, yeah, so that happened. And then I was called there again because someone said, I've heard you've been in Honduras. I want you to lead this team of Green Berets. That's a whole nother story for another time. And I want you to go in and I want you to help the hurricane rescue mission in my place. And so I went down there, and that is when I realized, man, there is so much poverty here. And there's also so much hope that if we were to do anything here, it would be received so well and amplified. And so I was brought back to Honduras a number of times. I've been there probably 10 or 12 times now. But in the beginning, it was that I kept being called back.
So, as a final question before we finish off the recording, well, I'm sure we'll have more questions for you once we stop.
Sure.
How do you get asked to lead a group of Green Berets? Can you give us the short version of that story, or?
So if I told you these stories, they're so incredible. I can't even believe them sometimes. But I've just been the kind of person who I'm always out asking about someone else. I want to hear the stories of other people. This particular woman, is now she's 35 years old. She was 33 at the time, owns her own private island. And one of her things is that she had gone to Africa as an 11-year-old, and her charge was to also be able to help children escape human trafficking because she had seen so much when she was so young. She was charged from 11 years old with this great mission. She became an entrepreneur because God told her that was her way to be able to give back. And so she now owns 7 companies, a private island, and has a nonprofit that comes into countries, whenever there is a natural disaster, mostly hurricanes and tornadoes, and she provides the network and the resources and the money to help them get back on their feet again. And she was doing something at the island. She was having a boat removed from the water. And she said, Shannon, I know you've been there. I know you can lead the team. Can you go in my place? And so I said, of course. Like, I have no idea that I have that experience, but I'll take the challenge because it's helping someone. So that is how I got asked.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, we're going to wind things down because we're kind of like into that time. However, we'll keep talking with you. One of the great benefits for all of our members and guests of joining these recordings is that you get to keep talking to these interesting people we connect with.
Beautiful.
So if you are visiting from another club, make sure you do a couple of things for us. First, fill out the attendance form. It helps us know what kind of reach we have, and leave a message in the discussion forum at the bottom. The DISQUS system, you'll see the comments that others have left, and you can respond to their comments as well. It's one of the ways in an online and asynchronous club we connect with each other. This particular program is a nice way for us to get into the space of helping children, which is a focus of the president of the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley in 2023-2024, Nick Lagarde, up in Vancouver. And so we're happy to be able to share this story as part of that effort as well. Shannon, we always like to leave to finish our recordings by handing the mic over to the speaker for the final word. What would you like to leave our viewers with?
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. I would like to leave you with, if you are inspired to learn to dream, please share that notion with everyone you know, because that is the future generations. And their success rate comes from being able to be creative and problem solve and learn to dream. So share your heart.
Wonderful. Everyone, we will see you next week.